Chapter 8. Pythagoras. Worshipping the immortal gods as by law established. Pythagoras. I was researching in the library of the learning place to be able to understand as much as I could about Pythagoras when Coco and Kika arrived. "Ready for your first trip into the past?" Kika asked me. "I don't know, Kika," I answered. "What is it that you don't know?" Coco asked me. "I don't understand why I have been chosen to do something like this," I answered. "In time you will understand why we chose you," Kika said. "Why have I been selected or preferred above others?" I asked. "You have been picked out because you possess some unique qualities that eventually you will discover by yourself," Coco answered. "Some people are better than others, Sebastian. You have an intellect of unquestioned quality, and you are sincere, honest, and understanding. Throughout your lifetimes you have always been respectful, imaginative, and most important of all, you have always been faithful to the light. Even after your bad experiences, you have always come back to us," Kika said. "Now it is time for you to go back to the times of Pythagoras," Coco added. "Why Pythagoras?" I asked. Pythagoras, the long-haired Samian, thought that without art and numbers life would be difficult, if not impossible, to live. His intellectual reverberations have persisted for more than 2.5 millennia. One of Pythagoras's main preoccupations was the possible destinies of the soul. Will it side with the light or the darkness? For Pythagoras, the cosmos is mathematics, and all is number. The game between the light and the darkness is a numbers game. The one who gets more souls to his side will be the winner, and at the end of the game, the winner takes all," Coco noted. "Remember what Pythagoras said. The most momentous thing in human life is the art of winning the soul to good or evil. This concept is an essential part of this game between the light and the darkness. Are the souls more prone to light or darkness? We believe that good should prevail, but I must admit to you that darkness has played better than us, and unless we bring the lover's card to us, darkness will be triumphant," Kika said. "Ready to go?" Coco asked. "Yes, I am," I answered. We walked together throughout the halls of the learning place until we reached the screening room. It was as if I was entering a movie theater with a huge IMAX screen. The three of us stopped before the screen. "What do I do next?" I questioned. "Walk into the screen and it will transport you to the 6th century BCE. You will then be able to see and review the entire life of Pythagoras, and you should choose his most brilliant teachings and most memorable times and bring them to us. First you must bring the card played by Pythagoras, and then you must bring us a single commandment that best applies to his life and teachings," Kika explained. "Ready to walk into the screen and fly over to the times of Pythagoras?" Coco asked. "I am ready." After answering Coco's question, I walked into the screen, and suddenly I found myself flying into something unknown to me. However, I soon identified my surroundings. I was over the Greek island of Samos, and I could see the date, June 22nd, 570 BCE. I quickly added the numbers. 6 plus 2 plus 2 plus 5 plus 7 equals 22. Pythagoras was number 22. Immediately, the 22 cards played in this game came to my mind. Which card will Pythagoras be playing in this game between the light and the darkness? Pythagoras' father, Metasarchus, was a gem merchant, and his mother, Pythias, was prophesied that she would give birth to a man supremely wise and beneficial to humanity. This man was Pythagoras. Pythias, the fairest of the Samian race, from the embraces of the god Apollo, bore Pythagoras, the friend of love. People believe that Apollo's domain sent Pythagoras to Earth. Part of this belief is correct, as Pythagoras came from the light for the benefit of mankind. Pythagoras was still very young when his father died, and he contemplated what would happen to his father's soul after that. He believed the human soul can migrate from one human body to another, but also the bodies of other creatures, such as animals. However, with each new incarnation, the soul loses the memory of the past, and each subsequent embodiment is as if we lived for the first time. Pythagoras was right, however. He did not explain why we lose all of our memories of previous lifetimes. Why do we need to forget our past lifetimes? What's the point of being reincarnated if we have to start over and over again? From my experience in the learning place, I can tell you that if we can't remember when we were babies, what makes us think that we could not forget past lives? I can assure you that when we reincarnate, we receive a veil of forgetting, which allows us not to feel the pains and sufferings of a past life. Just because we can't remember our past doesn't mean it didn't occur. We will not forget all our past lives either when we return to the learning place or when we return to the scanning place. When Pythagoras was 18, Samos fell under the tyranny of Pitagoras. Pythagoras realized that his studies might be interrupted under such a government, so he decided to travel to Egypt. Pythagoras followed the teachings of the philosopher Thales. At an early age, he chose to abstain from wine and animal food. Young Pythagoras consequently enjoyed excellent health when he began his journey into the knowledge of Egypt. Pythagoras received instructions and initiation into the mysteries of Bablos and Tyro, and he wanted to learn everything that he deemed essential. He believed that in Egypt he would be able to find monuments and traditions more divine and genuine than he ever found throughout his studies. He sailed in a Phoenician vessel towards Egypt. The sailors in the boat admitted him, but with the secret intention of selling him as a slave when the opportunity arose. However, during the sailing, when they perceived the remarkability of Pythagoras, they changed their minds and treated him with the utmost respect. He once stated, "When you deliberate whether or not you shall injure another, you will previously suffer the evil yourself, which you intend to commit. However, neither must you expect any good from the evil, for the manners of everyone are correspondent to his life and actions. Every soul is a repository, that which is good of things good, that which is evil of things depraved." The sailors began to reflect that there was something extraordinary or even supernatural in the young Pythagoras. During the whole trip, Pythagoras sat silent, where he would be least likely to inconvenience them at their tasks. For 2 nights and 3 days he remained in the same position, without food or drink or sleep, and the voyage proceeded without interruptions, as if some deity had been on board. They finally landed on the Egyptian coast, and I can see the sailors reverently assisting him to disembark. The sailors offered him all kinds of food, which he graciously accepted to restore his physical vigor. I then followed Pythagoras around Egypt. He frequented all the temples and gradually won the esteem and admiration of all the priests and prophets with whom he associated. During this time, Pythagoras did not wish to fail to visit any place where he thought he might discover something worthwhile. He visited Egyptian priests, therefore acquiring all the wisdom each possessed. Pythagoras also spent 22 years in sanctuaries and temples, studying astronomy and geometry, and was initiated in all the mysteries of the gods. God is a light incapable of receiving its counterpart, darkness. I would not be so sure about that, because we are in the middle of a war between these two forces. You have in yourself something similar to God, and therefore use yourself as a temple of God, on account of that which in you resembles God. At this point I have to ask myself, what is the light telling me? 22 years? Is that a reference to the 22 cards of the Egyptian Major Arcana tarot cards? Why do the numbers 11, 22, and 33 continually reappear? Pythagoras is the father of numerology. In numerology, every number is essential and significant, but there are three numbers, 11, 22, and 33, that we need to pay extra attention. These three numbers, 11, 22, and 33, are master numbers. These three master numbers have profoundly influential meanings and messages. They can be a curse or a blessing. If you can master these numbers, they can become very productive numbers for you. The number 11 represents challenges. It's a challenging and compelling number, capable of great things, but it's also capable of inflicting significant damage. We all know of the powerful combination of 9 and 11. We always have to be careful when we see the number 11 around us. However, number 11 is typically taken on by an old soul who has been around many times. The number 33 is nicknamed the Master Teacher. It's a combination of 11 and 22. This number has high energy and is concerned with doing good in the world. It's a Masonic number, and there are 33 degrees in Masonry. The negative traits of number 33 are hazardous due to the knowledge attributed to this number. However, the number 33 is the perfect balance between the first two numbers. The master number 22 is the most important of the three master numbers. The light and the darkness play this game through the number 22. However, the other two master numbers have been used openly by both sides in this game. This number is considered to be a master builder. Master number 22 holds more power than any of the other combination of digits, and it provides you with limitless opportunities, but simultaneously will bring you tremendous challenges. After spending 22 years in Egypt, Pythagoras was taken captive by the soldiers of Cambyses and was carried off to Babylon. However, upon his arrival, he was freed, and he joined the Babylonian priests and mathematicians. Through their assistance, he studied and completed arithmetic, music, and all the other sciences. Pythagoras spent 12 years in Babylon, and when he was 56, 5 plus 6 equals 11, years of age, he returned to Samos. He once said, "Traveling teaches a man frugality, and how he may be sufficient to himself. For bread, made of milk and flour, and a bed of grass, are the sweetest remedies of hunger and labor." On his return to Samos, some of the older inhabitants of the island recognized him. After that, he was invited to impart his knowledge publicly. He taught them mathematics, but not one of them was genuinely interested in learning, and so they abandoned him. However, Pythagoras found a young man interested in learning, and he introduced him to arithmetic and geometry. The young man became so captivated by the logic of Pythagoras' teachings that he became a devoted disciple of his for life. The young man learned that it is better to be silent or to say things of more value than silence. Sooner throw a pearl at hazard than an idle or useless word, and do not say a little in many words, but a great deal in few. Now I can see Pythagoras traveling to Delphos. Here people admired him as he approached the so-called bloodless altar of Apollo. Once again, Pythagoras visited all the oracles, and after that traveled to Crete and Sparta to learn their laws, and finally returned to Samos. Pythagoras once stated, "The self-sufficient and needy philosopher lives a life truly similar to divinity, and considers the non-possession of external and unnecessary goods as the greatest wealth. For the acquisition of riches sometimes inflates desire, but not to act in any respect unjustly is sufficient to the enjoyment of a blessed life. A deprived man does not listen to the divine law, and on this account lives without law." Upon his arrival on Samos, Pythagoras established a school named the Semicircle of Pythagoras. The school taught science, numerology, mathematics, geometry, and astrology to everyone interested in attending the classes. His philosophy gained significant importance, and his fame extended to all of Greece, as the best students from all over Greece came to study at his school. However, Pythagoras needed to expand his experiences, so he decided to travel to Italy. He arrived at Crotona, the noblest city in Italy, where the Cenobites not only studied philosophy, but also shared all their possessions. Their reverence for Pythagoras was so great that they ranked him amongst the gods. Was Pythagoras a god incarnate? Yes, he was the first incarnation on earth of Apollo. So far from what I've learned, Apollo was part of the energy of Zeus, who was one of the 22 original divinities. The connection between Zeus and Apollo was total. The light told me that soon I would be able to learn more about the beginning of all that is. Apollo is the god of music, truth, and prophecy. It's easy to understand now why Pythagoras spent a great deal of time visiting the oracles and temples, as he deciphered information from there. He also referred to the importance of humanity's relationship with animals by stating, "As long as man continues to be the ruthless destroyer of lower beings, he will never know health or peace. For as long as men massacre animals, they will kill each other." Some of his followers labeled him the Northern Apollo. Others considered him as one of the Olympian gods, who, to correct and improve physical existence, appeared to their contemporaries in human form, to extend to them the salutary light of philosophy and happiness. They truly believed that never will come to mankind greater good than that which Pythagoras imparted to the Greeks. It is here in Crotona where Pythagoras fell in love and married Theano, a girl of Crotona, who was his pupil. After Pythagoras' death, Theano gave her version of Pythagoras' numbers, as she stated, "I have learned that many of the Greeks believe Pythagoras said that numbers generate all things. The very assertion possesses difficulty. How can non-existent things be conceived to generate? He said that all things are following numbers." Pythagoras continued traveling throughout Italy, and his first task was to liberate those cities which he understood had oppressed each other through slavery. After that, he helped establish laws that allowed the cities to flourish and become models for other cities in Italy. Pythagoras' laws prevailed, and partisanship, discord, and sedition disappeared for several generations. He stated, "Observe justice in your actions and your words. Don't accustom yourself to behave without rule and reason. Always make the reflection that is ordained by destiny that all men should die." Pythagoras believed the following, that the East was more critical than the West, morning more important than evening, beginning than the end, growth than decay, natives than strangers, city planners than city builders, gods than divinities, divinities than non-divinities, heroes than men, and that the authors of birth in importance excel their progeny. Were the gods worthier of honor than the divinities? In one of my conversations with the Light, he briefly explained to me about the 22 original gods and the 52 angelic beings, but I am still waiting for a full explanation for me to understand it. The 22 original gods? The 52 semi-divinities or angelic beings? Pythagoras was the reincarnation of Apollo. So was he a divinity or a semi-divinity? As of today, everything is mixed together because the energy of all the gods has transformed the divinities and the angelic beings into different powers, who are attempting to win the war between the light and the darkness. Now I can see Pythagoras teaching his students about love for one's parents, as he states, "From our parents we learn to honor divinity. No doubt the gods will pardon those who honor their parents no less than those who honor the gods." Who was the father of gods and men? Zeus? Christ? Jehovah? Brahma? Allah? Who was the original God who created everything? Was it merely one, or a multitude of them? I will have to wait to find an answer to this question. Temperance was another of the main topics discussed by Pythagoras. The virtue of temperance applied universally to all goods. Those of body and soul preserve our health and awareness. Pythagoras cites as an example of the lack of abstinence the War of Troy, in which, through the incontinence of one individual, great calamities took place. The gods responded with a punishment that lasted 1,010 years. 1,010, 1010 equals 11. We attain number 11 yet again. Do the gods always use the master numbers to punish us? Pythagoras continued traveling and teaching, and this time discusses the education which differentiates the man and a wild beast, a Greek and a barbarian, a free man and a slave, and finally, a philosopher and a boor. In short, evolution supposes a significant advantage over those who do not possess it. Pythagoras explained by drawing illustrations from history and philosophy, demonstrating that erudition enables a naturally excellent disposition to share in the achievements of the leaders of the past. Pythagoras was the first person to label himself as a philosopher. A philosopher, according to Pythagoras, is a man who devotes himself to the contemplation of the most beautiful things, and simultaneously participates and looks for the intelligible essence in all the things surrounding him. The final goal being the improvement of the human race. He claims, "Above the cloud with its shadow is a star with its light. Above all things, reverence yourself." Pythagoras continued working, and he finally discovered the Pythagorean theorem. The theorem states that in a right-angled triangle, the area of the square hypotenuse, the side opposite the right angle, is equal to the sum of the areas of the square, or squares of the other two sides. This finding was a tremendous achievement during those times. As an incarnation of Apollo, protector of music, Pythagoras discovered that the musical notes could translate into mathematical equations. Pythagoras was approaching his last years on Earth and insisted on delving into his pre-existence before this current lifetime. I can see him talking to his intimates, Theano among them, about his former lives. He insisted that he was Deiphobus and that he participated in the Trojan War. I can see him pronouncing the name Deiphobus. However, while I was researching in the learning place, the name written in the manuscripts read Euphorbus, creating some confusion when investigating Pythagoras' claim. I am telling you that Pythagoras was Euphorbus in a previous reincarnation. Euphorbus was a prince of Troy, and he was one of the chief Trojan heroes. After the death of Hector, he became the leader of the Trojan army, later on to be betrayed by Helen of Troy. Pythagoras maintained that the soul has three vehicles. The first one is ethereal, which is luminous and celestial, in which the soul resides in a state of bliss in the stars. The second one is luminous, which suffers the punishment of sin after death. The third one is terrestrial, which is the vehicle it occupies on this earth. Pythagoras was very close in the understanding of the reality of the soul, and he kept insisting in his theory that the universe's emergence developed from numbers, and possibly that numbers are no more than a three-dimensional living geometric organism. He claimed that the earth, fixed in the center of the universe, becomes the heart of the gods and is the boundary of darkness and light. The earth utilizes balance as a root and base of all other substances of produced things. The substratum is matter, while the reason for each shape is abstract form. The result of the two is earth, matter, air, and fire. This process describes the creation of humans. Everybody is composed of surfaces, whose elements are triangles. I can see Pythagoras now during the year 506 BCE. Pythagoras is 74 years old, and he's walking home when suddenly he falls and breaks his thigh. He is taken back to the gymnasium by some of his students, and I can feel Pythagoras's pain. He asks one of his students to locate Aberus and to bring 47 gold coins to the gymnasium. Aberus arrives at the gymnasium, and Pythagoras asks him to melt the gold and return it to him. Pythagoras decided that making a cast, something unknown at the time, could hold his broken bone in the thigh and make it heal. Today we make casts from two different kinds of materials, plaster and fiberglass. In 506 BCE, these materials were not available, and Pythagoras thought that gold and iron could do the job. While the gold was melting, Pythagoras asked his two best sculptorists to cut 2 pieces of fragile iron, sculpting his thigh. After the gold melted, Aberus brought it to him. Gradually, Pythagoras placed the 2-part thigh sculpture around his thigh and then applied the gold solution on top of the iron cast pieces, making what today we know of as a cast. This singular cast gave birth to the legend of Pythagoras's golden thigh. Now I'm going to pay a visit to the last days of Pythagoras on earth. The year is 496 BCE, and Pythagoras is at the house of Milo in Crotona. War had stretched out all over Italy and Greece, and was already reaching Crotona. Pythagoras is talking to his students. Each number has its personality, masculine or feminine, perfect or incomplete, beautiful or ugly. 10 is the very best number. It contains in itself the first 4 integers, 1, 2, 3, and 4. 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 equals 10. And these written in dot notations form a perfect triangle. Suddenly Milo's house is on fire. Crotona's enemies have burned his home and are waiting outside to kill Pythagoras and his disciples. I can see Pythagoras's disciples forming a bridge, using their bodies over the flames to allow Pythagoras to escape. However, there was no way out, and Pythagoras choked and died from asphyxiation. The flames consumed his body, and the killers could not recognize Pythagoras's body. After the fire died down, there were some remains of human corpses found in the debris. To disable families from identifying the victims, they burned off the corpses' heads and limbs. 22 people, including Pythagoras, were at Milo's house when the fire began. Isaiah noted, "When you walk through the fire, you will not be scorched, nor will the flame burn you." Even though Pythagoras's body did not walk through the fire, his soul did, and his body remained undiscovered. Many people believe he abandoned the house before the explosion and escaped with some of his disciples. The date of Pythagoras's death was February 1st, 496 BCE. I added the numbers 2 and 1 and 4 and 9 and 6, 22. 22, the War of the Gods at its finest. My time was over, and suddenly I was flying back into the learning place. I then arrived, and the light, Kiko, and Kika were awaiting me. "Welcome back, Sebastian," the light said. "Thank you," I answered. "How was your first trip into the past?" Kiko asked. "I do not have the words to describe it. It was amazing. Everything was surreal and unbelievable," I replied. "You traveled to Pythagoras' time, a true moment in history. Historians to this day are still trying to figure out what exactly happened. You have seen in 22 hours the 74 years of the life of Pythagoras. You've been able to appreciate the most important moments of his life, and I imagine that you have taken good note of them, the light said. I believe I did, I stated. Evolution is the law of life. Numbers are the law of the universe, and unity is the law of God, Coca said. I believe Pythagoras explained concepts unknown in those times. The concept of evolution was unknown before Pythagoras. Numbers being the law of the universe is something that we know is true, but difficult to understand at the time of Pythagoras. Unity as the law of God is what we are trying to demonstrate in this game between light and darkness. Even if different gods or energies created the universe, it was the energy of all as one creator that gave birth to life on earth, I answered. What is the card that you bring from Pythagoras for the light? The light asked me. I am happy to give you card number 7, the Chariot card, I replied. Okay, now please explain, Kika said. The description of the card is a powerful one. The king figure is sitting in a swift chariot, and 2 sphinxes pull the chariot. The card of the chariot represents empowerment, drive, mastery, strength, self-discipline, the wise use of energy, self-control, and contemplation. The ruling master of the chariot is none other than Pythagoras. Master Pythagoras oversees the growth of consciousness and the manifesting of man's return to harmony. The chariot also helps to power sweet musical sounds, in contrast to the present sounds, which expose humanity's lack of balance and peace. Master Pythagoras offers assistance to those who are attached to the rigid traditional concepts and helps one attain a simplified attitude to the real qualities in life. The energy of the chariot combines understanding with severity to help achieve victory in our lives. The chariot, represented by Pythagoras, is persistent and never accepts defeat, and therefore will ultimately succeed, like Pythagoras once did. He once stated, "We ought so to behave to one another as to avoid making enemies of our friends, and at the same time to make friends of our enemies." The chariot is an image of our inner struggle between the various parts of the personality. The wings of the chariot depicted in the card represent inspiration because reason is immortal, all else mortal. The king warrior figure on the chariot symbolizes control and self-determination. One must choose always the way that seems the best, however rough it may be. Custom will soon render it easy and agreeable. The 2 sphinxes depicted in the card symbolize the will of humanity, represented by 2 opposing forces within human nature, which require mastery before achieving progress. In anger, we should refrain both from speech and action. The number 7 indicates a time for solitude and silence. The sense of being a nonconformist brings a great deal of spirituality to this card. 7 is the number of the mystic, the sage, the one who is looking at a better connection to God and always seeking the truth. Pythagoras preached that truth is so great a perfection that if God would render himself visible to men, he would choose light for his body and truth for his soul. Truth. What is truth? The quality or state of being real? Truth per a fact or a condition? Alternatively, is it an accepted belief? However, taken by whom? Truth is not merely whatever works for you or me, because the truth is not necessarily what the majority says is true. Truth is not only what people believe, as a lie is still a lie, even if the majority of people believe that it is true. Truth is undefinable by intention. In many cases, good intentions can still be hurtful. While I was Don Quixote, I had good intentions, but hurt some of the people I tried to help. The word truth comes from the Greek word aletheia, meaning unhidden, or to hide nothing, subsequently allowing us to see clearly, with no hidden aspects. Truth is merely explaining or telling something like it is. It is teaching the way things are. But are these things the same for everyone? For what I've learned in the afterlife, all truth is relative, and there is not such a thing as absolute truth, because the truth is nothing more than an illusion. For Pythagoras, the sheer fact did not exist, and it is depicted in the Chariot card by the Master King offering assistance to understand a new truth not based on traditional concepts, but in new ideas hidden within your immortal soul. Pythagoras once cried out for liberty. However, what is liberty? Liberty from pain? Liberty from slavery? Liberty from madness? However, who knows the truth? The sages who taught a doctrine of fatality? The priests who attributed everything to divine guidance? Alternatively, the great mass of humanity which stood between the two, with no idea of what was happening? Pythagoras decided the three of them declared some aspect of truth. However, none of them understood the entire truth, as it proves illusory. The Chariot card is associated with victory, in this case in the triumph of Pythagoras over the ignorance of those surrounding him. Pythagoras, as the king, stands triumphant in his chariot. The chariot has a blue awning decorated with white stars, and the king wears a decorative suit of ceremonial armor. The card points towards determination, finalizing objectives and testing and proving one's abilities. Pythagoras' school, where he granted students degrees, displays this sense of determination. Reparation is the name of the first degree. The novices, called listeners, are similar to the two sphinxes of the card, who are listening to the king, Pythagoras. The second degree granted to the students was purification, wherein the student acquired access to a systematic exposition of Pythagoras' secret doctrine. During the degree, the student engaged in the science of the numbers. Moreover, it is here that we find the number 7, the card of the chariot number 7. For Pythagoras, 7 signifies the union of man and divinity. However, for Pythagoras, none but God is wise. However, number 7 is the ruler of forms and ideas, and the course of gods and demons. Was Pythagoras already deferring to the war between the light and the darkness? Was he aware of this battle? The third degree was called reflection, which the chariot, meaning discipline and morals of human existence, represent. The chariot never accepts defeat, even in the most challenging circumstances. The final message of the chariot is that all opposites can stand side by side, and the identity of each is made more distinctive by its opposing characteristics, I concluded. "Excellent, Sebastian," the light exclaimed. "Why is there a veil of forgetting? Why can't we remember our past lives?" I asked. "Kika and I are in charge of the veil of forgetting," Coco answered. "The veil of forgetting allows us to forget any trauma from previous lifetimes and allows us to find ourselves without initially realizing our connection to the light or the darkness," Kika stated. "At times it might seem that you are on your Earth experience alone, but you are never alone. There are spirit guides to support you, but you need to be in touch with them," Coco said. "You said you were in charge of the veil of forgetting?" I asked. "Yes, we are. When you listen to a newborn, the first words that the baby pronounces are Kika, Coco, Kiki. They remember our names, just as their last connections to the source, in this case, to the light. The babies look for us and they can see us. They remember us for 1 or 2 years, and then their connection to the source of the light is limited, and finally they get disconnected," Coco noted. "Can we lift the veil of forgetting?" I asked. Some people claim that one way to lift the veil of forgetting is through meditation, but the truth is that very few people can lift the veil of forgetting. In this game, the veil of forgetting is one of the rules, Kika said. Lifting the veil of forgetting will terminate this game, the light said. Why? I asked. If you can remember past lives, you will not make the same mistakes over and over again. And this is the reason why your present memory ceases to exist at the time of death, Coco said. What's the point of living a new life if we're not going to remember it or learn from its lessons? Or if I can't remember old lessons from previous past embodiments? I asked. All those answers are inside you, and remember that your entire personality is the sum of all the experiences you ever had throughout all of your lifetimes, Kika replied. I think that this is enough for today. We will have more time to discuss all these issues with you soon. Now tell us the commandment that you bring from Pitagoras to the light said. I believe that the commandment is straightforward, and it is none other than, the soul is immortal, I answered. You did very well, Sebastian. It has been your first trip into the past, and I must say that I'm impressed, the light said. Is there anything you want to add about Pythagoras? Kika asked. There are men and gods and beings like Pythagoras, I concluded.